Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Event Hustler Show. It is fall. We're here in New York, and I was at my parents' house this past weekend, and the leaves are starting to change color already. It is the day after Labor Day, and I think for many people, it's kind of that first day back to business. I know this week is, in general, kind of up in the air because kids are going back to school and a lot is happening, but I'm really excited to be back with the Event Hustler Show. We have not had an episode for a week or two in the doldrums of summer, but we're back. And today we have an amazing guest and a really interesting topic, I think, very important topic to talk about. I'd like to welcome Meredith Rollins, who is with PCMA and has joined us all the way from the West Coast. So it's 10:30 here in New York, but unfortunately it's 7:30 in the morning there. You already look gorgeous, Meredith. So thank you so much for joining.
No, it's great to be on. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So I wanted to talk today about a topic that I've been doing a little research on personally. It's something that I've seen mentioned in the events industry for many years. And it's a little bit different than what we typically talk about on these podcasts, these shows, because we talk specifically to the event hustler audience, which are mostly independent event professionals. And typically we've been talking about people's careers and how they got their business off the ground. But today I really wanted to talk about this topic of human trafficking and what that means for the events industry. I think planners in every aspect of our industry need to be aware of this. And I also think, independent planners tend to deal with a wide variety of events. And so there's, I think, a lot of crossover. So I think it's a very important topic for our audience. And I would love to just start, though, by learning a little bit more about you. Can you tell us about your career and your role at PCMA now?
Sure. So right now I'm serving as the Chief Community Officer for PCMA and Executive Director of our foundation. So essentially our team is commissioned to serve our members and make sure they have the all the resources that they at their disposal, and also help them get connected with each other. We're really a community for business event strategists. So our team is really helping people find like-minded individuals and helping people connect on different topics and work on volunteerism and committees and our board. So it's really an exciting team to be a part of, and we're, our members are the reason we exist. So it's great to get to work with them every day.
And how about you? How did you get into this kind of a role?
I actually have been with PCMA since I first started with them in 2007. So it's been a while, and I did go work for a different Association for Corporate Growth, which was all private equity professionals and investment banking. But with PCMA, I've kind of gone through different project management, and then I worked on our global initiatives for a while. Then our partnership team was my longest kind of stint. And then I went into our foundation. So I guess I'm an example of like association management, sort of like going through every single department and experiencing different things. And I sort of landed here, my most recent transition in April, when we combined the foundation teams and our membership teams into this community team. So I kind of grew up with PCMA. It's a great industry to be a part of. Like you said, I mean, you can't beat working in face-to-face meetings and bringing people together. So I'm really glad to be in this career.
And PCMA is such a big organization in our industry and so important. I think you guys do some really interesting things, not only with the events that you host and the communities that you're building, but just talking about topics like human trafficking. And it seems to me, based on what I've read, and I have a lot to learn about this myself, so that's why I want you on the show. Yeah. It seems to me, based on what I've read, that PCMA has kind of taken a stance that is really important. And just done more than just like, hey, let's talk about it. There seems to be a deeper interest in it, which I think is really important. I think sometimes when we talk about human trafficking, especially on a podcast like this or, in the events industry, it's like, what is the connection? Like, why are we even talking about this on the show? What would you say is the reason why this matters? And, I think people know what human trafficking is. I hope that we've established that part, but what's the connection to our industry?
Yeah, it was eye-opening for me too, for the same reason that you just said. I think, everyone knows it's happening, but a lot of times we think about it, first of all, not even being in North America, happening in other parts of the world. But really, it was a relationship we have with Merit's Global Events. David Peckinpah serves on our board, and he sort of really raised our awareness about it through the work that Merit's has done with ECPAT USA. And that's really what initiated and got PCMA, got us to step up, because we realized this is something that as business travelers, the profession that we do, we have the ability to see this and kind of be trained and understand on what to look for and how to act and how to react and alert authorities. So it's interesting. It's a sad reality. And like you said, it's not a fun topic to talk about, but it's real. And it's pretty actually exciting that we can make a difference in something that's such a terrible problem that's happening behind the scenes all through our hotels and on airplanes and in transit. So those are the big areas that it's really taking place, is in hotels and in airplanes. So that's why it's an opportunity for all of us as we travel to be looking for this and to get trained.
And even at our events, right? Like a big events. I mean, maybe it's not happening at your everyday conference of 100 people, but large events, we are seeing these kinds of transactions take place, right?
Exactly. Especially at, like you said, like the 100,000, 50,000 plus, where there's just a lot of distraction. And so sometimes these human trafficking rings use those events as sort of the perfect place to let it happen, and people aren't really looking.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think event planners these days feel pretty overwhelmed. Our jobs are pretty busy because we not only have logistics, but I know risk management is something big that people are focused on for good reason. We've had to become event marketers and content marketers and do all these things. And now we're talking about looking at human trafficking at your events and what you should be aware of. It's a lot. It's just, how do you keep up with what you should be looking for? What are some tips for people who think it's great to be aligned with a good cause and to want to do good, but what are some things that we should be thinking about?
So the great news is that ECPAT USA has, and they've really been the one leading this charge, and we're just one of their partners, and glad to be a part of it. They have this amazing 20-minute training that you can take online that I took it this summer. Our entire staff team took it this summer, and it exactly what you said. It shows you what to look for. What are the signs? First of all, what is the magnitude of the problem? So there are over 40 million victims globally is what they estimate. And 1 in 4 of those are children. So this is a pretty serious issue. And you can do the training that kind of informs you what the problem is, what to look for, and how to act. And I think the most important thing that I learned from it is it's things that, sometimes you would pick up on anyway. So it's just being a little bit more aware. I think about it a lot because now we're so tied to our phones all the time. And when you're walking through the airport, you're constantly checking email, responding to people. It's made me a little more aware to not be doing that, because you can't pick up on these signs if you're not taking in your surroundings. So that's something I would definitely recommend, is to take that training. And we, at PCMA, we've gifted it to attendees at our events. We'll definitely have an activation, an opportunity for people to do it at Convening Leaders in January. So we can provide information. If anyone has questions, just feel free to email me directly. I can send you the link to that. And actually, ECPAT has a goal, working with many industry organizations, to train 20,000 event professionals on human trafficking and what to look for by July of 2020. So you could be a part of that, 20,000.
So can you tell us more about this training? I know we can definitely put the link on the video so that people can see it. And of course, they can reach out to you. But it's ECPAT that's doing the training?
Yes.
What does that stand for? Do you know? And if someone wanted to Google it right now, how would they find it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's ECPAT USA. It's Ending Child Human Trafficking. So, and it is the leading authority and organization on ending this terrible thing that's happening. And we have partnered with them on the education, because this is an example of, we don't need to recreate the wheel. They're doing a great job, and they see the channel, and they specifically are partnering with travel companies. You may have seen Marriott just signed on a deal that they're going to train all of their associates. Because as event professionals, it's also, all of the hotel staff that are working in the airline staff and convention staff that are working in these venues that can be trained to look out for this, the signs.
Okay, so we'll definitely put the link in the comments. And I see there are a few people watching live. If you guys have comments or questions, we'd love to have you put those in the chat box and we would definitely get to them. Sheila is watching and she talks about Traffic Cam. She's part of the Ignite program, so we just got off a phone call like half an hour ago. Perfect. And we're talking about this topic, and she was talking about how there's an app that you can use in hotel rooms to help police identify hotel rooms, not just what hotel it is, but possibly even the room. You just, I think, take a picture of the room. I haven't heard of this until this morning, so I haven't done much research, but it's a good way for the police to be involved. Is this something you know about?
Yeah, we highly recommend it too. It's an awesome project. So just like Sheila said, you take a photo of your hotel room and the police are able to inventory that, and they can actually, it's amazing technology. They can match it up with other images that have been taken, and they've been able to successfully find crimes that way. So I definitely recommend it too. And it's something that ECPAT recommends.
And is this training that you talked about, I know you said it's only 20 minutes. I think when I think of, ending human trafficking, I feel like I need to go to like a 9-month course or something. But as you said, it's probably just being aware of what to look for. Is this something that you are encouraging us to share with our entire teams as well? I assume so. I know Mariette is doing that.
Yeah, and you're right. It's just the beginning. After you do the training, there's also additional documentation that you can read through and for extra resource. The other thing that they recommended, what we did was we signed the code. And that's something any organization, it's the ECPAT code, any organization can sign up for. And it's a commitment that through our RFPs and our sourcing, all of our processes, that this becomes core to something that we do, and that we don't support organizations that are involved in this in any way. So that's something I would recommend looking into as well. But certainly to your point about training your staff, that training is really helpful, and something that's, it's nice to have something off the shelf that you can use and immediately have an impact.
What are some of the things that we should be looking for, like when we're in the airports or the hotels? I think it was a very good point to get off your phones and actually look at your surroundings, which is important for many reasons, including our mental health. But what are some of the signs that you've learned that we should be looking for?
Yeah, one of the main things is if you see someone that, first of all, if there seems to be a kind of a discrepancy in age, and also if they're very quiet and don't make eye contact. That was one of the things that stood out to me. Especially you think about being at a hotel check-in desk and how that's something that an associate could pick up on because they're averting their eyes and not looking up. So that was one of the main characteristics. And then also just being aware of, vehicles that are around you, and if you see like multiple people that are on those vehicles. So it's mostly those kind of tips that are really included in the training.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so I just mentioned that it was Labor Day and we were with our family, and I was having this whole conversation with my family about how in today's society, it seems like everyone kind of feels like you should just stick to your own lane. We were particularly talking about parenting. It's like, if you see someone abusing their child, most people don't say anything because they just think like, well, that's their kid, whatever it is that you think. I don't know. I'm one of those people who would step in and be like, excuse me, this is not okay.
Right.
But I don't think that that's our culture necessarily. And I know here in New York, it's a big thing that if you see something, say something. It's all over the subways. It's all, and they're talking about terrorism and other things. Mm-hmm. But how do you know? Do they give you any tips on when you see something that just doesn't sit right? When it's something you should say something about, and is it just a case where we just shouldn't be minding our own business as much?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, because that was another thing that was impactful for me to go through. That they really recommend not stepping in and saying something to the individual, but going to an authority or security or someone that's trained to deal with those kinds of difficult interactions, because you really could be putting yourself in harm's way. So that was also really interesting to see that, you really shouldn't be stepping in yourself.
Yeah, so whenever we do any kind of topic, whether it's a blog I'm writing about or one of these shows, I always feel like as soon as I say that I'm doing it, it's like, it's almost like when you buy a new car and you see that new car everywhere all of a sudden. So as I mentioned, Sheila was talking about how she's putting together some content around this topic this morning.
Oh,
and
great.
then on the news, they were actually covering child sex trafficking for some reason this morning when I was watching earlier this morning. They mentioned the same thing. They said, you don't step in. There could be a lot of repercussions, not only for you, but also for whoever the victim might be. I can only imagine on law enforcement side, though, sorting through, if we all start just reporting everything that looks suspicious, but it's a numbers game, right? It's like the more people who report it, eventually they're able to kind of filter down and figure out what's actually an issue.
Right. And I think another thing that's fascinating is the face recognition technology. And I know it's another kind of controversial topic, but it's one of those things that you read about and you think it can be used in such a positive way. So I've read about cases where they've been able to, through face recognition, track, like if there's an incident, they can go back and track where the original ring of this was happening, and be able to find a much larger impact versus just the one case. So I think I have mixed feelings about it myself because of just privacy, and it seems a little strange. But when you think about how it could be used for good, it's hard to contradict it.
Yeah, it's a very mixed bag, right? With technology, just the ability to do amazing things, and at the same time, you lose your privacy. And I think it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one other thing I should say is, PCMA, certainly we're not an expert on human trafficking. So, we so appreciate that you brought us on, because I think our view on it is that it's important for us to be a part of the conversation and to help our members be educated about this, because exactly what you said, it is happening. And that's really our view, is to give our members and the community of event professionals, whether you're a member or not, access to these resources and training. So we certainly are committed to it as an organization, but also in providing training.
And it's one of those things that, the industry is huge and we have a great power to make an impact on this, perhaps with something as simple as a lot of people getting a 20-minute training and doing a little reading and being aware. Awareness, I think, is one of those key things. It's, if you're not thinking about it or you're always on your phone or whatever, then there's only so much we can do. But if you imagine our industry kind of banding together against something like this and committing to keeping our eyes open, and if you see something, say something, and all these little cliche words that really at the end could make a huge impact on this big problem. This is not something that, like you said, it's not something that just happens in other countries and is, very small. This is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually exciting to think about the change that we could impact through this, because the number of people that are touching events and touching the different elements of the travel experience, if we're all kind of on the same page about what to look for, I think we can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. How does PCMA decide that this is something worth talking about and spreading awareness about and providing resources to? I mean, human trafficking, as I just mentioned, is a huge issue. I'm sure you are talking every day about huge issues. There's no shortage of places where we can make a difference. So what are the criteria that make you say this is something we need to invest some time and resources in?
So it really is in alignment with our vision. We went through a revisioning exercise about 2-3 years ago and really crafted and narrowed our vision to transforming economies and social communities through business events. So to us, this is so core. It's about what business events are bringing people together to come up with amazing innovations every day, to connect people that are going to go change the world in their own way. And as you know, anytime you're bringing someone together with another person, like there's something that happens and there's a connection that's made. So we think our message is about how business events are changing the world. And this aligns with that, because if there's something that's happening that we can make a difference with, we should be vocal about it. We should make sure that we're training. So, another issue that we have tackled in the last year is homelessness. And, that's another thing that you think, well, whoa, that's huge. And like, can PCMA really make a difference in that? But again, our point is, it's not that we're trying to solve it ourselves. It's that we have some really, really smart people that work in the events industry, that have the ability to think differently about how our little slice of the world could impact this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we think of it kind of in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother episode on its own. But it's a very smart way to look at it. We have a lot of power in our industry, and like you said, a lot of really smart people who have unique perspectives on the travel industry and on events, and there is a big impact that we can make if we put the resources around it.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely going to put the link to the training that you mentioned in the comments for this video, as well as to the organization and things like that. But in terms of PCMA, is there any place that you guys are kind of keeping resources on your own website or on in trainings or whatever that people should be looking for as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So at foundation.pcma.org, we have a section on social impact that kind of talks about all the different areas that we're currently involved in. And our foundation specifically exists to support these kinds of projects, and educational and social impact related. So we have that section on our website, as well as and then it has links and like articles, and our Convene magazine, we do a lot of articles on these topics as well. So you can find that on our pcma.org site /convene.
Okay. I'll try to put links to as much of that as possible. And if you see, I mean, if you see anything I missed, please feel free to put it in the comments as well.
Perfect.
Is there anything else related to human trafficking, things that you've learned that you feel like shocked you, or things you really think people need to be thinking about or aware of in relation to our industry?
I think that, I think we covered most of it, but to me, it just goes back to what we've already talked about, which is just the awareness and understanding that this is something that we can impact, because these topics and you see something on the news this morning, for a normal person seeing that, it's like, well, how do I even make a difference? How can I impact that at all? It seems like something totally out of the realm of just one person. But actually in this case, we really can make a difference, because we are the ones that are traveling. We're in airports. If you think of like the miles that each of us does in 1 year, and the amount of times that we're checking into hotels and we're in the lobby, like an associate can't track it all. So it has to be sort of that, if you see something, say something, like you said in New York. It's important that we as human beings are looking out for each other, and especially for children that are completely helpless, and they're trusting these adults, and they're getting into this situation that they can't get out of. They don't have the power or any means to be able to change their situation. So it's really up to us to help.
Yeah. I mean, we talked several times today about the power of the events industry, but you bring up a very good point about community and just caring for the people around you, having an eye open to see, not only human trafficking situations, but just things in life where you could be making an impact. Just having that eye is really important. And I think, as you mentioned, business events have great power, but all events have this ability to bring 2 people or 3 people or 1,000 people face to face and have a transformative experience for all of those people in the context of an event. So what we do every day in our planning is a lot more than, venue logistics. And, sometimes it's easy to get lost in the logistics, but what we're doing in our industry is really important. And it's something that I think many people I talk to in the industry, they're very passionate about building community, being a part of community, supporting the people around them. And this is a great reminder on a busy Tuesday morning when everyone's kind of getting back to work that, there's so much more to the work that we do beyond booking venues and vendors and, coordinating name tags and some of the stuff that we often get really wrapped up in.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you so much for joining, and thank you to the people who are watching live, as well as all the people who will watch the recorded version. I think this is an example of more of the kind of tough topics we'd like to talk about on this show and bring awareness to the great work that associations like PCMA in our industry are doing, and individual people. I mean, everyone can make an impact. If there's something that is really tugging at your heart, it is something you're really passionate about, there is always a way to make a difference. And sometimes it's as simple as awareness and just keeping your eyes open and doing a little bit of training. So you've mentioned some great resources. Sheila also mentioned the traffic cam. So I'll try to put links to those in the feed so that people can stay in contact with PCMA and all the organizations who are doing great work about this. And I thank you for waking up at whatever time to join us super early from the West Coast. It was really good to talk to you about this topic.
Thank you so much, Liz. I really appreciate it. And it was great talking to you too.
Of course. So we'll be back with another episode of Event Hustlers next week at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and that will be on Tuesday. And until then, we hope you all hustle hard. Have a great week. That first week back in September. We're going to crush this next quarter and close out the year in a great way. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Take care.